The night Lena Hart was sold, she wore a red dress that cost more than her entire life, and it wasn't hers to keep. The penthouse smelled like cigar smoke and expensive cologne, but underneath it all was the sharp copper tang of fear. Her uncle's hand on her shoulder felt like a shackle. The man across the room smiled when he saw her, the kind of smile that made her skin crawl. She didn't know yet that before dawn, blood would paint the marble floors, a stranger would execute her buyer with cold precision, and her entire existence would shatter and rebuild in the span of a heartbeat. If you want to know how a girl who was sold became the woman who couldn't be bought, stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and comment your city below so I can see how far Lena's story travels across the world. The apartment Lena shared with her uncle Raymond smelled perpetually of stale beer and broken promises. At 21, she'd grown accustomed to the particular geography of disappointment, the water-stained ceiling above her mattress, the fridge that hummed but never quite cooled, the door that didn't lock properly. Small failures that added up to a life lived in the margins. She worked double shifts at the diner on Morrison Street, her feet aching in shoes held together with superglue and determination. Every dollar she earned disappeared into Raymond's hands before she could even fold it. Rent, he said. Utilities, food, the debt her mother had left behind when she died. You owe me, Lena, he reminded her constantly, his breath sour with afternoon drinking. I took you in when nobody else would, kept a roof over your head. She never argued. Where would she go? The red dress appeared on a Thursday. Raymond came home mid-afternoon, unusual enough to make Lena look up from the textbook she'd borrowed from the library. He carried a garment bag and a shoebox, both bearing logos she recognized from storefronts she'd never entered. Got something for you, he said, his smile too wide, too eager. It made something cold unfurl in her stomach. What is it? Just a dress, shoes. He laid them on the couch like offerings. There's a dinner tomorrow night. Business associates of mine. They want to meet you. Lena had lived with Raymond for 6 years since she was 15 and freshly orphaned. In all that time, he'd never once mentioned business associates. He drove an unlicensed taxi, drank at Murphy's bar until closing, and watched sports betting apps drain his checking account. His idea of business networking was arguing with the landlord about late rent. Why would they want to meet me? Does it matter? His voice sharpened. You'll go. You'll be polite. You'll wear what I bought you. It's one night, Lena. One goddamn night where you make yourself useful for once. The words hit like they always did. Small, precise strikes designed to hurt without leaving visible marks. She'd learned not to flinch. What kind of dinner? The kind that could change our situation. He opened the garment bag, revealing a dress the color of fresh blood. Silk, by the look of it. Real silk. The kind that could clear what we owe and then some. What do we owe? Raymond's face darkened. More than you want to know. You think this life is cheap? You think keeping you fed and housed all these years costs nothing? He thrust the dress at her. You'll go. You'll smile. You'll do whatever the fuck they ask. Understand? Lena understood more than he thought. She understood that desperation made men dangerous. She understood that debt created its own gravity, pulling everything down into darkness. She understood that she had no power here, no leverage, no choice. Fine, she said quietly. I'll go. His expression shifted, relief chasing away the anger. Good girl, they're sending a car at 8. Be ready. That night, Lena lay awake in the dark, the red dress hanging like an accusation from her closet door. Something about this felt wrong in a way she couldn't articulate. Raymond's nervousness, the expensive clothes, the careful avoidance of details. Business associates. She'd heard enough crime podcasts, read enough news articles to know that phrase could mean 1,000 different things, none of them good. But what choice did she have? Run? With what money? To where? Raymond had made sure she understood her position. Indebted, dependent, trapped. The next evening arrived too quickly. Lena showered in water that never quite got hot enough, scrubbing her skin until it hurt. She applied the makeup she'd bought from a drugstore 2 years ago. The cheap foundation that never quite matched her skin tone. The mascara that clumped if you weren't careful. Her hand shook as she stepped into the red dress. It fit perfectly. That should have been the first real warning. The dress hugged her frame like it had been made specifically for her measurements. The shoes, black heels with red soles that she'd only seen in magazines, elevated her 3 inches. When she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. The girl staring back looked expensive, polished, like someone worth buying. The thought made her stomach turn. Raymond whistled when she emerged from her room. Damn, you clean up better than I thought. Where exactly is this dinner? High-rise in the financial district, real fancy place. He straightened his own collar, cheap polyester trying to pass for something better. Remember, be polite, smile, don't ask too many questions. You're coming too, right? Something flickered in his eyes. Just to make introductions. After that, you're on your own. The car arrived at 8 precisely. A black sedan with tinted windows and a driver who didn't speak. Raymond climbed in beside her, his knee bouncing nervously throughout the ride. He kept checking his phone, typing messages to someone, deleting them, typing again. Lena watched the city pass outside her window. They drove through neighborhoods that got progressively nicer, the buildings taller, the streets cleaner. By the time they pulled up to a glass tower that seemed to scrape the sky itself, her heart was hammering against her ribs. Remember what I said? Raymond muttered as they stepped into a lobby dressed in marble and gold. Be polite. Don't fuck this up. The elevator ride lasted forever, and no time at all. They emerged on the 43rd floor into a private vestibule with a single door. Raymond rang the bell. A man answered. Tall, mid-50s, with graying hair and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He wore a suit that probably cost more than Raymond made in 6 months. Raymond? His voice was smooth, cultured. Right on time. And this must be Lena. Yes, sir. My niece, just like we discussed. Beautiful. The man's gaze traveled over her in a way that made her skin crawl. Absolutely beautiful. Come in, come in. The penthouse sprawled before them. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the glittering city. Furniture that looked like art installations, lighting designed to create shadows and intimacy. 3 other men sat in the living area, all older, all watching her with varying degrees of interest. Lena's survival instinct screamed. Gentlemen, the man who'd answered the door announced, allow me to introduce Lena Hart. Very nice, Thomas, one of them said, standing. He was shorter than the others, barrel-chested, with rings on every finger. She's even prettier than the photos. Photos? Lena turned to Raymond. What is this? Just dinner, like I said. But he wouldn't meet her eyes. Be polite, Lena. Thomas, apparently the host, gestured to a chair positioned like a throne in the center of the room. Please sit. Can I get you a drink? Champagne? Wine? I want to leave. Lena's voice came out steadier than she felt. Raymond, I want to go home. Now. Sit down, Lena. Raymond's hand closed on her arm, fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. Don't embarrass me. Let me make something clear, Thomas said, his cultured voice taking on an edge. Raymond here owed some people a substantial amount of money. Gambling debts, mostly. The kind of debt that gets difficult to ignore after a while. He moved closer, each step deliberate. We offered him a way out, a clean slate. All he had to do was deliver his lovely niece to this address tonight. The room tilted. You sold me. Lena looked at Raymond, waiting for him to deny it, to say this was all some terrible misunderstanding. He couldn't meet her eyes. Not sold exactly, Thomas continued. Think of it more as a transfer of assets. Raymond's debt is cleared. You transition into new ownership. Everyone benefits. I'm a person, not an asset. That's semantics. Thomas smiled. And in about 5 minutes, it won't matter what you think you are. Raymond, your payment will be wired within the hour. You can show yourself out. Lena lunged for her uncle as he turned toward the door. Don't you dare leave me here, please. Raymond, please. He shrugged her off without a word, without a backward glance. The door closed behind him with a finality that echoed through the penthouse like a gunshot. Now then, Thomas gestured to the other men. Shall we discuss terms? I'm thinking we start the bidding at... The door exploded inward. Not opened. Exploded. Wood splintering, hinges shrieking, the entire frame collapsing inward under the force of whatever hit it. Lena screamed and dropped to the floor as men in black tactical gear poured through the opening like a flood. Gunfire erupted. She'd heard gunshots before, distant pops from the street outside her apartment. This was different, deafening, concussive. The sounds drilled into her skull as she pressed herself against the floor, hands over her head, eyes squeezed shut. When it stopped, the silence rang louder than the chaos. Clear, someone said. Male voice, calm, professional. 3 down, 2 surrendered, another voice reported. Sir? Lena opened her eyes. The 3 men who'd been evaluating her like livestock lay motionless. Thomas knelt with his hands behind his head, another man beside him in the same position. The tactical team had their weapons trained on both, fingers ready on triggers. And standing in the destroyed doorway, framed by the hallway light like something out of a nightmare, was a man who radiated authority so absolute it seemed to bend the air around him. He was tall, over 6 feet, with dark hair pushed back from a face that could have been carved from stone. He wore all black, tailored slacks, a fitted shirt, leather gloves. No visible weapons, but he didn't need them. Everything about his posture, his expression, the cold calculation in his dark eyes screamed danger. He looked at Thomas. How many? I don't know what you... The man moved faster than Lena would have thought possible. One moment he was standing in the doorway. The next he had Thomas by the throat, lifting him off the ground with one hand. How many girls have you bought this month? 6, Thomas choked out. 6, including her. The man's hand tightened. Thomas's face went purple. The tactical team didn't intervene. They stood like statues, watching their leader crush a man's windpipe with the same emotional investment someone might have in swatting a fly. Where are the other 5? Thomas couldn't answer, couldn't breathe. His legs kicked uselessly. Boss, one of the tactical team said quietly, we need him alive for the locations. The man holding Thomas considered this for a long moment. Then he dropped him. Thomas collapsed, gasping, hands at his throat. You have 10 seconds to give me addresses, the man said. After that, my patience expires. So does your oxygen supply. Thomas talked, sobbed out locations between gasping breaths. One of the tactical team recorded everything on a phone. When Thomas finished, the man in black looked down at him with something beyond contempt, beyond hatred. It was the look someone might give a roach they were about to step on, acknowledgement of existence followed by absolute negation of value. Marcus, one of the tactical team said, a warning, maybe, or a question. The man, Marcus, pulled a gun from somewhere Lena hadn't seen, pressed it to Thomas's forehead. Wait, Thomas whispered. Please, I gave you everything. You bought 6 women this month. Marcus's voice was cold as winter death. How many last month? The month before? How many years have you been doing this? I can pay. I have money. So did they. Marcus pulled the trigger. The sound echoed through the penthouse. Thomas crumpled like a puppet with cut strings. The other kneeling man started to scream, but one of the tactical team knocked him unconscious with the butt of a rifle. Then Marcus turned and looked directly at Lena. She couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Her entire body had locked up, some ancient prey instinct freezing her in place, while a predator decided whether she was worth the effort. He walked toward her, each step measured, deliberate. Lena tried to scramble backward, but her legs wouldn't cooperate. She ended up pressed against a white leather couch, red dress riding up, one heel lost somewhere in her panic. Marcus stopped 3 feet away. This close, she could see details. A thin scar cutting through his left eyebrow, the expensive watch on his wrist, the complete absence of anything resembling mercy in his expression. Stand up, he said. It wasn't a request. Lena forced herself to her feet, legs shaking so badly she had to grab the couch for support. He studied her face. How old are you? 21. Who brought you here? My uncle, Raymond Hart. Something flickered in his eyes. And what did he tell you this was? A dinner, her voice broke. He said it was a business dinner. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. I believe you. He turned to his team. Find Raymond Hart. Bring him to the warehouse. Boss, one of them said. What about her? Marcus looked at Lena again, and for a moment something almost human crossed his face. Pain, maybe, or memory. Then it was gone, replaced by that stone-cold calculation. She comes with me. No, the word came out before Lena could stop it. No, I'm not going anywhere with you. You just killed someone. You're a criminal? Marcus finished. Yes, but unlike the man on the floor, I don't buy people. And I have a rule about women in situations like yours. He pulled off one of his gloves, revealing scarred knuckles, and extended his hand to her. I don't leave them to die. Lena stared at his hand like it was a snake. You have 2 choices, Marcus continued, patient as a teacher explaining basic math. Come with me willingly, or stay here and wait for the police. When they arrive, they'll find you in a penthouse with 4 dead criminals. You're wearing an expensive dress you can't explain. Your uncle's testimony will place you here voluntarily. Best case scenario, you spend the night answering very uncomfortable questions. Worst case, you become the prime suspect in a quadruple homicide.
I didn't do anything. I know, but can you prove it? He let the question hang. I can have you somewhere safe in 20 minutes, fed, clothed in something that doesn't make you look like merchandise. Tomorrow morning, you can decide what comes next. But right now, you're in shock and wearing shoes that cost more than most people's cars. You need help. I'm offering it. Why? Lena whispered. Why would you help me? For the first time, something genuine flickered in his expression. Grief, old and deep.
Because I couldn't help someone else once, and I've spent every day since trying to balance that equation. Behind her, the tactical team was already moving, photographing the scene, removing shell casings, working with efficient precision. They'd done this before. Many times before. Lena looked at Marcus's extended hand, at the man who'd just executed someone without hesitation, at the stranger offering her safety while standing in a room he'd turned into a war zone. You're in shock, her brain supplied helpfully. You're making decisions based on trauma and fear. This is a bad idea. But staying was worse, and going to the police. She looked down at the red dress, at the dead man on the floor, at the scene that would bury her under questions she couldn't answer. She took Marcus's hand. His grip was firm, warm, surprisingly gentle. He pulled her to her feet and immediately released her. Michael, he said to one of the team, give me your jacket. A man built like a linebacker shrugged out of a windbreaker and handed it over. Marcus draped it over Lena's shoulders, covering the red dress. We're leaving through the service elevator, Marcus told her. Stay close. Don't speak. If anyone asks, you're my assistant and you've had a long day. Understand? Lena nodded. The ride down was surreal. They passed 2 building security guards who took one look at Marcus and found somewhere else to be. In the parking garage, a black SUV waited with the engine running. Marcus opened the passenger door and gestured for her to get in. The driver was a woman, mid-30s, dark hair pulled back severely, eyes that tracked everything. She glanced at Lena but said nothing. Marcus climbed into the back seat. Marina, this is Lena. She'll be staying at the house. Lena, Marina handles security. If you need anything, she's who you ask. The house? Lena turned in her seat to look at him. What house? Mine. Marcus pulled out his phone, typing rapidly. It's secure, private. You'll have your own room and bathroom. No one will bother you. For how long? As long as necessary. Marina pulled out of the parking garage into city traffic. Lena watched the streets pass, her mind trying and failing to process the last 30 minutes. Her uncle had sold her. Men had bid on her like property. A criminal had executed her buyer and was now taking her to some kind of secure house. This is insane, she thought. I should jump out at the next red light, find a police station, tell them everything. But what would she tell them? That her uncle had debts to men who bought women? That a stranger had killed those men and rescued her? They'd call her crazy. Or worse, they'd believe her and she'd end up testifying, going into witness protection, losing what little life she had. You're thinking about running, Marcus said from the back seat. He wasn't looking at her, still focused on his phone, but somehow he knew. You're wondering if you can trust me, calculating the odds. Can I trust you? He looked up then, meeting her eyes in the rearview mirror. Probably not. I'm not a good man, Lena. I do bad things to bad people. I run an organization your uncle owed money to, not for the trafficking, but adjacent to those who do. I heard about Thomas's auction tonight through channels. I don't tolerate that particular brand of evil. His expression hardened. So no, you can't trust me to be good. But you can trust that I mean what I say. You're safe. You're free. And tomorrow, you can walk away if you want. Just like that? Just like that. Lena turned back to the window. They'd left the city center, heading toward the waterfront where luxury developments had sprouted like steel and glass mushrooms. Marina turned into a private drive, stopped at a gate, pressed a code. The gate swung open. The house beyond took Lena's breath away. It wasn't a house. It was a fortress masquerading as modern architecture. 3 stories of concrete and glass, positioned on a cliff overlooking the water. Floodlights illuminated manicured grounds. Cameras tracked their approach from multiple angles. Marina parked in an underground garage that held 6 other vehicles, none of them cheap. Marcus opened Lena's door before she could reach for the handle. This way. He led her through a security door that required both a keycard and a fingerprint scan, up a flight of stairs into a main living area that looked like something from an architecture magazine. Minimalist furniture, abstract art, windows that showed nothing but darkness and distant city lights. Guest wing is this way. Marcus walked down a hallway, stopped at a door, opened it. Bathrooms through there. Closets stocked with clothes that should fit reasonably well. If you need anything else, you use the phone on the nightstand. Press 1 for Marina, 2 for kitchen, 3 for me. Lena stepped into the room. King-sized bed, reading chair, desk. Everything clean and expensive and utterly impersonal. There are locks on the inside of the door, Marcus added. Use them if it makes you feel safer, but no one's coming in here without your permission. She turned to face him, this stranger who'd killed a man and offered her shelter in the same breath.
Why are you doing this? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of old wounds. I had a sister once, younger than you. Someone took her when she was 19. By the time I found her, it was too late. His jaw tightened. I couldn't save her. I can save you. That's the only reason that matters. Before Lena could respond, he stepped back into the hallway. Get some sleep, he said. We'll talk tomorrow. The door closed with a soft click. Lena stood frozen in the center of the room, Michael's borrowed jacket still hanging from her shoulders, one shoe on and one shoe lost. Her entire world shattered and reformed into something she didn't recognize. She walked to the window. Outside, the ocean stretched endlessly toward a horizon she couldn't see. Somewhere in the city behind her, Raymond was probably celebrating his cleared debts. Thomas's body was growing cold. Police would find the scene eventually. And she was here, in a fortress, with a man who'd killed without hesitation but spoke about his sister like a prayer. Lena pressed her palm against the glass. It was cool beneath her fingers. Real. This was real. She'd been sold, saved, stolen from one situation into another. Tomorrow, Marcus said she could leave. Tomorrow felt like a lifetime away. Lena locked the door, kicked off her remaining shoe, and collapsed on the bed without bothering to change. Sleep seemed impossible, but shock has its own mercy, and within minutes, darkness claimed her. She didn't dream, or if she did, she didn't remember. When she woke, sunlight streamed through the windows, and her entire life had already changed in ways she couldn't begin to understand. Morning arrived with the sound of waves against stone. Lena woke disoriented, her body registering the unfamiliar softness of expensive sheets before her mind caught up. For 3 beautiful seconds, she didn't remember. Then it crashed over her, the penthouse, the red dress, the execution, Marcus's cold eyes and extended hand. She sat up fast enough to make her head spin. The room looked different in daylight, still minimalist, still expensive, but less like a hotel and more like someone had actually considered comfort. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the ocean spread out in shades of gray and blue, morning sun turning the surface to hammered silver. Someone had come in while she slept. The red dress lay folded on a chair with the borrowed jacket on top. Her single remaining shoe sat beside them. On the desk, a bottle of water waited next to 2 pills and a handwritten note. For the headache. Breakfast is downstairs when you're ready. Take your time. M. Lena picked up the note, studying the handwriting. Strong, efficient strokes. No wasted movement. It matched everything she'd seen of Marcus so far. Precise, controlled, revealing nothing unnecessary. She found the bathroom stocked like a luxury spa. Toiletries still in packaging, thick towels, a shower with enough settings to confuse a NASA engineer. Lena stood under water hot enough to turn her skin pink, washing away the previous night until the drain ran clear and her fingers pruned. The closet held exactly what Marcus had promised. Women's clothes in various sizes, most still tagged. Lena chose jeans that fit reasonably well and a soft gray sweater. No shoes matched her size perfectly, but she found sneakers close enough. She studied herself in the mirror. Without the red dress, without the desperate fear, she looked like what she was. A 21-year-old woman who'd spent most of her life working double shifts and going nowhere. Brown hair that needed a trim. Green eyes underscored by perpetual exhaustion. Nothing special. Nothing worth buying. Except someone did buy you, her reflection reminded her. And someone else killed him for it. Lena looked away. The house revealed itself slowly as she ventured out. Her room was one of 4 in the guest wing, all identical, all empty.
The main living area she'd seen last night looked less intimidating in daylight, still expensive, but lived in. Books on the shelves, not just for show. A coffee mug on the side table, half empty, evidence of actual human occupation. She followed the smell of coffee down a hallway into a kitchen that would have made a restaurant chef weep with envy. Marina stood at the counter, chopping vegetables with the focused precision of someone who'd learned knife skills in a very different context than culinary school. She looked up when Lena entered. "Coffee's fresh. Mugs are in the cabinet above the machine." "Thank you." Lena poured herself a cup, wrapping both hands around the warmth. "Where's Marcus?" "Office. He's been up since 5. Marina resumed chopping. "You hungry? I'm making lunch for the staff, but I can put together breakfast if you want." "Staff?" "Security team rotates through. Cleaning crew comes Tuesdays and Fridays. Marcus has people." Marina's knife work never slowed. "He takes care of them. They take care of him. That's how it works here." Lena sipped her coffee. It was good, rich and dark, the kind that cost more than she used to make in a day. "What exactly does Marcus do?" Marina smiled without humor. "You'd have to ask him that. I handle security. Everything else is above my pay grade." She scraped the vegetables into a bowl, started on what looked like chicken. "But since you're here, I'll tell you what matters. This house has cameras covering every approach. Armed guards patrol the grounds. The gate won't open without biometric confirmation. Nothing gets in here that we don't want in here. Am I a prisoner? Are the doors locked?" Marina met her eyes directly. "You want to leave, there's a phone in the office. Call a cab, call a friend, call the police if that's what you think you need. Marcus meant what he said. You're free to go. But if you stay safe. That's the deal." Before Lena could respond, footsteps echoed from the hallway. Marcus appeared in the doorway wearing dark slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up. He looked like he'd already put in a full day's work. "You're up," he said. "Good. We need to talk." Marina glanced between them. "I'll be in the security office if you need me." She left with her knife and cutting board, closing the door behind her. Marcus poured himself coffee, leaned against the counter. In daylight, Lena could see details she'd missed in the chaos of last night. The scar through his eyebrow she'd noticed, but there were others. A thin line along his jaw, another disappearing beneath his collar. Evidence of a life lived violently. "How do you feel?" he asked. Confused, scared, angry. Lena set down her mug. "My uncle sold me. You killed a man in front of me. I woke up in a fortress on the ocean with no idea what happens next. How should I feel?" "Fair enough." Marcus took a drink, considering her over the rim of his cup. "Your uncle is dead." The words landed like a physical blow. Lena's knees went weak enough that she had to grab the counter. "We found him at his apartment around 3 this morning," Marcus continued, his tone as neutral as if he were discussing the weather. "He was packing, had about $15,000 in cash on him, his payment for delivering you. We brought him to a secondary location. I asked him some questions. He answered them, then he died." "You killed him?" "Yes." "Just like that?" "Just like that." Marcus set down his cup. "He sold his own niece to sex traffickers. He knew exactly what he was doing. He'd been planning it for 6 weeks, working out the details, negotiating your price. When I asked him if he felt any remorse, he said, and I quote, 'She was bleeding me dry anyway. At least this way I got something for my trouble.'" Lena's vision blurred. She pressed her palms flat against the granite countertop, focusing on the cool, solid reality of it while her world spun. "I know you probably had some complicated feelings about him," Marcus said quietly. "He was your family, the only family you had left after your mother died. But he was also the kind of man who looked at a 21-year-old woman and saw a commodity to trade. Those men at the penthouse? They were planning to resell you after they were done, ship you overseas where you'd disappear completely. Your uncle knew that. He didn't care." "Stop." Lena's voice came out raw. "Just stop talking." Marcus stopped. Lena focused on breathing, in through her nose, out through her mouth, the way she'd learned during panic attacks at the diner when the orders piled up too fast and the customers got too loud and everything felt like too much. Raymond was dead. The man who'd raised her, badly, cruelly, but raised her nonetheless, was dead. And she felt nothing. Or she felt everything. She couldn't tell which. "I should care," she whispered. "I should feel something." "Why?" Marcus's question was genuine. "He spent 6 years making you feel worthless. He took your money. He trapped you in debt you didn't owe. He sold you. Why would you mourn that? Because he's all I had. No. Marcus pushed off the counter, moving closer but maintaining careful distance. He was all you thought you had. There's a difference. You had yourself, your strength, your ability to survive in a situation designed to break you. That's what you had. Raymond was just an anchor dragging you down. Lena looked up at him. This man who'd executed people without hesitation. This criminal who spoke about survival like he'd written the manual. Why are you telling me this? She asked. Why not just let me think he got away? I'd never have to know. Because I don't lie to the people under my protection. Marcus held her gaze. Not about the important things. Raymond's dead. Thomas and his associates are dead. The other 5 women they'd purchased are in protective custody with people I trust. That's what happened last night. You deserve to know the truth. And what happens now? That depends on what you want. Marcus walked to the windows overlooking the water. You can leave. I'll set you up with enough money to start somewhere new. New city, new identity if you want it. You'll be safe. Or, he turned back to face her, or you stay here while you figure things out. You're not a prisoner, Lena. But this house is secure in ways the outside world isn't. The men we killed last night had connections, partners, people who'll want to know what happened. Until we've cleaned up the situation completely, you're safer behind these walls than anywhere else. How long? Hard to say. Week, maybe 2. He studied her face. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking this is another trap, another cage, just prettier than the last one. But here's the difference. You can leave anytime you want. You have my word. The word of a criminal. Yes. Marcus didn't flinch from the label. But criminals understand value in ways civilians don't. My word is worth more to me than your compliance. Break the first and I lose everything I've built. Breaking the second just means you're gone. He moved toward the door, paused. Take the day. Think about it. If you decide to leave, tell Marina. She'll arrange transportation anywhere you want to go. He left before Lena could respond. She stood alone in the kitchen, coffee going cold in her cup, mind racing through impossible choices. Leave and go where? Do what? She had no money, no home, no friends who wouldn't ask questions she couldn't answer. Stay and become what? A guest? A dependent? Another person in Marcus's orbit, owing him for her safety? You're free, he'd said. But freedom required more than an unlocked door. Lena spent the day exploring the fortress that wasn't quite a prison. The house had a gym that looked military grade, a library with books in multiple languages, an office she didn't enter. Outside, the ground stretched toward the cliff edge, manicured lawn giving way to natural scrub and stone. Guards patrolled at intervals, professional and polite when they nodded to her, never quite friendly. She found Marina in the security office, watching multiple screens showing different angles of the property. Can I ask you something? Lena said from the doorway. Depends on the question. How long have you worked for Marcus? Marina glanced up from her screens. 8 years. He pulled me out of a situation not too different from yours, actually. Except in my case, the people holding me were family too, just not by blood. She leaned back in her chair. I was working for an organization that didn't believe in retirement plans. When I tried to leave, they made it clear that wasn't an option. Marcus made them reconsider. He killed them? Some of them. The rest got the message. Marina's expression was neutral. He offered me a job. Security work, legitimate pay, a chance to use my skills without looking over my shoulder. I took it. Haven't regretted it once. But you work for a criminal. Well, I work for a man who keeps his word and pays his debts. Marina turned back to her screens. The world isn't divided into good people and bad people, Lena. It's divided into people who'll hurt you and people who won't. Marcus won't. That's rare enough to matter. Lena left her there and wandered back to her room. Through the windows, the ocean churned gray and restless beneath gathering clouds. A storm was coming in from the west. Dinner arrived via Marina. Grilled fish, roasted vegetables, bread that was still warm. Lena ate alone in her room, watching the storm break over the water. Lightning forked across the sky. Thunder rattled the windows. The house stood solid against it all, unmoved. She was loading her plate into the dishwasher when Marcus appeared. Walk with me, he said. It wasn't quite a question. They went down to the main living area, out through glass doors onto a covered terrace. Rain drummed against stone, but the overhang kept them dry. Marcus stood at the railing, watching the storm. I need to tell you something, he said after a long silence. About my sister. Lena waited. Her name was Sarah. She was 19 when someone took her from a parking lot outside her college, grabbed her in broad daylight, threw her in a van, gone. Marcus's hands gripped the railing hard enough to make his knuckles white. I tore the city apart looking for her, used every contact, every resource, every favor I had. Took me 3 weeks to find her. What happened? She was in a house on the outskirts of the city. They'd sold her to a man who liked to break things. His voice went flat, emotionless. By the time I got there, she was already broken. I killed everyone in that house. Brought her home. Got her the best doctors, the best therapists, everything money could buy. It didn't matter. She lasted 6 months before she swallowed a bottle of pills. Lena's throat tightened. I'm sorry. I was too late. Marcus turned to face her, and for the first time she saw past the cold control to the raw grief beneath. 3 weeks. That's how long it took me to find her. If I'd been faster, smarter, if I'd known the right people to ask the right questions. He stopped, jaw working. I've spent 5 years trying to balance that equation. Every woman I pull out of situations like yours, every trafficking ring I shut down, every piece of shit like Thomas I put in the ground. None of it brings her back. But it's all I have. That's why you helped me. That's why I'll keep helping you, for however long you need. He straightened, regaining his composure. But I need you to understand something. The world I operate in, the things I do, this isn't a rescue operation, Lena. This is damage control in a war that never ends. I can give you safety behind these walls. I can give you time to heal, to figure out what comes next. What I can't give you is normalcy. I can't give you a life where none of this ever happened. I know. Do you? Marcus moved closer. Because I've seen this before. People I've helped, they stay here a few days, start to feel safe, start to think maybe they can just wait it out until the danger passes. Then they get restless, bored. They start to resent the walls that keep them alive. They leave before they're ready, and sometimes I can protect them, and sometimes I can't. What are you saying? I'm saying if you stay, you need to understand what that means. You're not just hiding. You're learning how to survive in a world that already tried to destroy you once. His dark eyes held hers. This isn't a shelter, Lena. It's a fortress. And if you're going to live in a fortress, you need to know how to defend it. You want to teach me? I want you to be able to protect yourself when I'm not there. Marcus gestured back toward the house. Tomorrow, if you stay, Marina starts teaching you basics. Hand-to-hand combat, weapons handling, situational awareness. You don't have to become a soldier, but you do have to become someone who can't be taken easily. Lena stared at him. This criminal offering her survival skills like some kind of twisted finishing school. The absurdity of it should have been funny. Instead, it felt like the first real choice she'd been given in 6 years. And if I can't, she asked, what if I'm not cut out for any of this? Then you learn anyway. Marcus's expression softened slightly. You survived Raymond for 6 years. You survived last night. You're stronger than you think. I'm just offering to make that strength something you can use instead of something that barely keeps you alive. A thunder cracked overhead, close enough to make Lena jump. Marcus didn't flinch. He probably never flinched. I'll think about it, she said finally. That's all I'm asking. He turned to go, paused at the door. For what it's worth, Sarah would have liked you. She had the same look in her eyes sometimes, like she was calculating odds nobody else could see, figuring out how to win games she didn't choose to play. He disappeared back into the house before Lena could respond. She stood on the terrace for a long time after that, watching lightning illuminate the ocean in stark white flashes. Somewhere out there was the city where she'd spent her entire life feeling small and powerless. Somewhere out there was the diner where she'd worked until her feet bled. The apartment where Raymond had made her feel like a burden worth selling. All of it felt impossibly distant now. Here, behind these walls, she was safe, protected. And if Marcus's offer was genuine, she could become something more than the girl who'd needed saving. She could become the kind of woman who saved herself. The thought terrified her. It also made her feel more alive than she had in years. Lena went inside, locked herself in her room, and lay awake until dawn thinking about strength and survival and the difference between a cage and a fortress. When morning came, she found Marina in the kitchen. I'm staying, Lena said. Teach me. Marina smiled, sharp and approving. Training starts at 6. Don't be late. The next week passed in a blur of exhaustion and discovery. Marina proved to be a ruthless but effective teacher. They started with basics: how to fall without breaking bones, how to strike to disable rather than just hurt, how to read a room for exits and threats. Lena accumulated bruises like badges, each one proof that she was learning to fight back instead of just endure. Marcus watched sometimes from the doorway, never commenting, just observing with those dark, calculating eyes. At night, Lena soaked in baths hot enough to steam, feeling muscles she didn't know she had protest every movement. But she got stronger. By the end of the first week, she could throw Marina to the mat 1 time out of 5. By the end of the second, she'd stop flinching when someone moved quickly in her peripheral vision. Small victories, but they felt monumental. On day 10, Marcus joined a training session. "Show me what you've learned," he said. Marina stepped back. Lena faced Marcus across the mat, hyper-aware that he was bigger, faster, infinitely more experienced. Everything she'd learned felt suddenly inadequate. "Don't think," he said quietly. "React." He moved. Lena dodged more on instinct than skill, his grab missing her shoulder by inches. She tried the sweep Marina had taught her, but Marcus countered effortlessly, catching her wrist and using her own momentum to pull her off balance. She hit the mat hard. "Again," Marcus said, offering his hand to pull her up. They went 4 more rounds. Lena didn't land a single hit, but she didn't freeze either. She moved, adapted, tried different approaches. By the end, she was gasping for breath and Marcus hadn't broken a sweat. "Better," he said. "You're thinking like prey. I need you thinking like a threat." "I'm not a threat to you." "Not to me. But to anyone else?" Marcus tilted his head, studying her. "Marina, give her the knife." Marina tossed Lena a training knife, rubber blade, weighted to feel real. Lena caught it awkwardly. "Someone grabs you," Marcus said. "What do you do?" "Disable and escape." "Show me." He moved fast, catching her from behind, arm across her throat in a chokehold simulation. Lena's training kicked in. She dropped her weight, drove her elbow back into his ribs, twisted with the knife toward where his femoral artery would be. Marcus released her immediately. "Good," he said. "That's what I need to see. Not hesitation, not hope that someone will save you. Action." Lena stood there breathing hard, the training knife heavy in her hand. 2 weeks ago, she'd been a waitress who let her uncle steal her paychecks. Now she was learning to kill. "Why does this matter so much to you?" she asked Marcus. "Really? Not the stuff about your sister. This, right now, teaching me this." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried a weight she hadn't heard before. "Because the world is full of predators," he said, "and sheep don't survive by hoping the wolves will show mercy. They survive by learning to bite back." He took the training knife from her hand. "I can't protect you forever, Lena. Eventually, you'll leave these walls. When you do, I need to know you can protect yourself. That you won't end up like Sarah. That you won't end up like the women I'm too late to save." "I'm not your sister." "I know." His expression softened almost imperceptibly. "But you could have been. If I'd been slower last night, if we'd gotten the tip about Thomas an hour later, you understand? The margin between saved and destroyed is that thin. I can't make the world safe, but I can make you dangerous enough that the world thinks twice." That night, Marcus asked her to join him for dinner. Not in her room, not in the kitchen, but in the formal dining area Lena hadn't even known existed. The table could seat 12, but was set for 2, intimate despite the space. "I want to show you something," Marcus said once they'd started eating. He pulled out a tablet, brought up what looked like a city map covered in red pins. "These are active trafficking operations in a 50-mile radius, auction houses like Thomas ran, hotels that rent rooms by the hour for specific purposes, bars where recruiters work, transport routes." Lena stared at the screen. There were dozens of pins. Hundreds. "This is what I do," Marcus continued. "I identify the operations. I dismantle them. Sometimes legally through law enforcement contacts. More often through methods the courts wouldn't approve. It's a war that can't be won, only fought. And I've been fighting it for 5 years. Why are you showing me this?" "Because you asked why this matters so much to me." He zoomed in on one cluster of pins. "Last month, we shut down 4 operations, rescued 18 women, killed 12 men, sent 7 more to prison, and next month there will be more operations to shut down, more women to rescue, more men who need killing. It never ends." "That sounds exhausting." "It is." Marcus set down the tablet. "But it's also the only thing that lets me sleep at night. Sarah died because I wasn't fast enough, wasn't connected enough, Didn't know how to navigate this world well enough to find her in time. Every person I save now is me trying to be fast enough for someone else's sister. Lena looked at the map, at all those red pins marking suffering and exploitation. You can't save everyone. I know, but I can save some. And you, he met her eyes across the table. You have a choice now. You can take the money I offered and disappear into a safe, normal life. Or you can stay and help me fight. Help you how? However you want. Marcus leaned back. Some of the women I've rescued work logistics. Others work intelligence gathering. A few work operations alongside my team. What matters isn't what you do. It's that you're choosing to do it, that you're transforming what happened to you into power instead of trauma. That's a hell of a recruitment pitch. It's not recruitment, it's an option. He stood, clearing plates. Think about it. There's no pressure. You want to leave tomorrow and never look back? That's fine. You want to stay and just focus on healing? That's fine too. But if you want purpose, if you want to make sure what happened to you never happens to anyone else, I'm offering you a way. Lena helped him carry dishes to the kitchen. They worked in comfortable silence, and she realized with some surprise that she wasn't afraid of him anymore. Wary, maybe. Aware of what he was capable of, but not afraid. Can I ask you something personal? She said finally. You can ask. I might not answer. Why aren't you married or with someone? You have this house, this life. Don't you want someone to share it with? Marcus's hand stilled in the soapy water. I was engaged once, before Sarah died. A woman named Claire, smart, beautiful, patient with my long hours and unexplained absences. He pulled the plug, watched the water drain. After I went to war with everyone who'd touched her, Claire couldn't recognize the man I'd become. She left. Said she'd signed up to marry a businessman, not a killer. Was she right? Completely. He dried his hands. I am a killer, Lena. I've ended more lives than I can count. Some of them deserved it. Some of them were just in the way. I sleep fine with it because the alternative, doing nothing, letting people like Thomas operate freely, that would destroy me faster than any guilt. Doesn't it get lonely? Every day. Marcus's admission came quiet and honest. But loneliness is better than loving someone and watching them realize you're a monster. Lena thought about that as she got ready for bed that night. About the man who'd killed her uncle without hesitation, but spoke about his sister with broken tenderness. About the criminal who ran an empire but spent his nights mapping trafficking operations. About the fortress that was also a home. The cage that was also freedom. She was still thinking about it the next morning when she told Marina she wanted to learn more than just self-defense. I want to know how all of this works, Lena said. The operations, the planning, everything. If I'm going to stay, I want to be useful. Marina's smile was sharp with approval. I'll let Marcus know. He'll be pleased. And somewhere in the fortress by the water, a girl who'd been sold started learning how to become the kind of woman who couldn't be bought. The transformation had begun. Marcus's empire revealed itself in layers, each one darker and more complex than the last. Lena spent her mornings training with Marina, her afternoons learning the business. She sat in on meetings where men in expensive suits discussed territory disputes and profit margins in the same tone others might use for quarterly reports. She learned that Marcus controlled shipping routes, construction contracts, and a dozen legitimate businesses that generated enough money to fund the war he was fighting in the shadows. She also learned that war was expensive. Bribes cost money, Marcus explained one afternoon, showing her spreadsheets that tracked payments to police, politicians, and port authorities. Intelligence gathering costs money. Weapons cost money. Every woman we pull out of a trafficking ring needs housing, medical care, psychological support. All of that costs money. The legitimate businesses fund the illegitimate mission. They were in his office, a space Lena had been invited into more frequently over the past 3 weeks. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the ocean. Multiple monitors displayed security feeds, encrypted communications, and those maps covered in red pins. How do you decide which operations to hit? Lena asked, studying the current map on screen. Intelligence determines priority. We have people embedded in various organizations feeding us information. When we hear about an auction, a shipment, a sale, we move. Marcus zoomed in on a cluster of pins near the waterfront. Right now, we're tracking a man named Viktor Sokolov. Russian national, operates out of the industrial district. He's been expanding aggressively, stepping on toes, making noise. Is he trafficking? Among other things, weapons, drugs, people. Victor doesn't discriminate as long as it's profitable. Marcus's expression hardened. 3 weeks ago, he kidnapped 2 of my men, Alexei and James, both good people, both loyal. We've been trying to negotiate their release, but Victor keeps raising the price. What does he want? Marcus turned to look at her, and something in his eyes made Lena's breath catch. You, he said quietly. He wants the woman I pulled out of Thomas's auction. Says she's worth more than 2 soldiers. Thinks I'll trade. The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Lena's hands went cold. How does he even know about me? Thomas's partners talked before they died. Word spread that I'd killed him over a girl. Victor's smart enough to understand leverage when he sees it. Marcus stood, moving to the windows. He's been sending messages. First just inquiries about your location, then offers to trade. Now threats about what he'll do to Alexei and James if I don't deliver you by Friday. That's 2 days from now. Yes. Lena's mind raced. 3 weeks ago, she would have been paralyzed by fear. 3 weeks of training, of learning how Marcus's world operated, had changed something fundamental in her thinking. She wasn't calculating how to hide anymore. She was calculating how to win. You're not actually considering it, she said. Of course not. Marcus glanced back at her. But Victor doesn't know that. He thinks you're some terrified victim I'm keeping locked up. He thinks threatening my men will force my hand. So what's the actual plan? Marcus smiled, cold and sharp. We make him think he's winning, set up a meeting, agree to the exchange, then we take back what's ours and eliminate the threat. You're going to walk into his trap. I'm going to turn his trap into mine. He returned to his desk, pulled up building schematics. Victor operates out of a warehouse complex on the east side. Security is heavy, but predictable. He'll expect me to come with minimal force, trying to keep things quiet. Instead, we bring everyone. Lena studied the schematics. 4 buildings arranged in a square with a central courtyard. Multiple entry points, but all easily defended. It was a fortress in its own way, just uglier than Marcus's. Where would he keep your men? Probably the main building, 2nd floor. He'll want them visible during the exchange, proof of life. Marcus traced routes on the screen. Standard play would be to position snipers here, here, and here. Ground forces at each entrance. We'd be boxed in the moment we entered the courtyard. So don't enter this courtyard. He looked at her sharply. Explain. Lena pointed to the schematics. He's expecting you to follow protocol, to play it safe. What if you don't? What if I walk in alone? Absolutely not. Hear me out. She pulled up a chair, adrenaline making her thoughts crystalline. I walk in, unarmed, exactly what he expects. A scared girl being delivered. Victor focuses all his attention on me, on making sure the prize doesn't escape. Meanwhile, your team is already inside, coming through points he's not watching because he's watching me. Marcus shook his head. Too dangerous. If anything goes wrong, I use what Marina taught me. Lena met his eyes. You said I needed to stop thinking like prey. This is me not thinking like prey. This is me being the bait that turns the trap around. Lena, I'm not asking permission. Her voice came out stronger than she felt. You gave me a choice. Stay and help or leave. I chose to help. This is me helping. They stared at each other across the desk. Lena could see the calculation in Marcus's eyes, weighing risk against reward, protective instinct against strategic advantage. She'd learned to read him over the past weeks, to understand that beneath the cold control was a man who cared deeply about the people under his protection. It made him strong. It also made him vulnerable. I can't lose someone else, he said finally, voice rough. Not like Sarah. Not because I made a tactical decision that got them killed. You won't lose me. I'm not walking in there blind and helpless. Lena stood, moved around the desk until she was close enough to see the fear he was trying to hide. But I am walking in there. Because those men are in danger because of me. Because Victor wants me specifically. Because I can do this, Marcus. You've spent 3 weeks teaching me how. 3 weeks isn't enough. It's what we have. She touched his arm, felt the tension coiled in his muscles. Trust me. Or trust what you've built me into. Either way, this is the play that works. Marcus closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them again, the vulnerability was locked away behind cold strategic focus. We do this. We do it my way, he said. You follow every instruction exactly. You don't improvise. You don't take risks I haven't cleared, understood? Understood. And if at any point I give the abort signal, you run. You don't argue, you don't hesitate, you run and let my team extract you. What's the abort signal? I'll say your name twice, Lena Lena. You hear that? Everything else stops mattering except getting out. She nodded. When do we do this? Tomorrow night. Victor wants the exchange at midnight, dramatic bastard that he is. Marcus pulled up a new screen, started typing. I'm sending you to briefing with Marina and the tactical team. They'll need to adjust the plan with you as the primary entry vector. Go, learn. And Lena, she paused at the door. Thank you, he said quietly, for being brave enough to do this. And I'm sorry I have to let you. Lena didn't trust her voice to respond. She just nodded and left. The next 24 hours blurred into intense preparation. Marina walked Lena through the plan 17 times until she could recite it backwards. The tactical team, 8 men and 2 women, all former military or law enforcement, treated her with cautious respect once they understood her role. You're the chaos factor, a woman named Chen explained. She was ex-army, demolitions expert, and had the kind of focused intensity that made Lena want to stand straighter. Victor expects a hostage, a victim. You walk in and own that space. His attention splits. That's when we move. They equipped her with a tracker sewn into the lining of her jacket, microscopic and undetectable, a panic button disguised as a coat button, and a knife in her boot, small and sharp, that Marcus insisted she carry despite the plan calling for her to be unarmed. If everything goes wrong, he said, pressing it into her hand during a brief moment alone, you do whatever it takes to survive. You understand? Whatever it takes. Lena slipped the knife into her boot. Its weight felt like the promise. Midnight approached with terrible inevitability. Lena dressed in clothes that made her look younger than 21. Jeans, a simple sweater, sneakers. No makeup. Hair pulled back. She wanted to look like what Victor expected, a victim being delivered, not a threat. Marcus found her in her room as she was checking the knife for the 10th time. Scared? He asked. Terrified, she admitted. But that's good, right? Keeps me sharp. It does. He sat on the edge of her bed, and for a moment he just looked exhausted. The weight of leadership, of sending people into danger, showed in the lines around his eyes. I want you to know something. If this goes bad, if Victor manages to take you, I will tear this city apart to get you back. There is no place he can hide, no deal he can make, nothing that will stop me. You understand? I won't need rescuing. Lena surprised herself with how much she believed it. I'm ready. You are. Marcus stood, offered his hand. Let's go get my men back. The drive to the warehouse district happened in tense silence. Lena rode with Marcus in the SUV, Marina driving, Chen in the passenger seat checking weapons. The tactical team followed in 2 other vehicles, far enough back to avoid detection. They parked 3 blocks from the target location. Marina killed the engine. Team 1 is in position at the north entrance, Chen reported, listening to her earpiece. Team 2 has the south. We're waiting on confirmation for the roof access. Tell them they have 5 minutes, Marcus said. He turned to Lena. Remember, walk in confident but not threatening. Keep Victor talking. Wait for your signal. She touched the panic button disguised as her coat button. I've got this. You do. He reached out, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear in a gesture that was almost tender. But if you don't, if things go sideways, you press that button and we come in loud. Pride isn't worth your life. Neither is hesitation worth yours. Lena opened her door. I'll see you on the other side. She walked alone toward the warehouse complex, her footsteps echoing off pavement still wet from afternoon rain. The buildings loomed ahead, dark except for scattered lights in the main structure. Guards at the entrance watched her approach with predatory interest. I'm here for Victor, Lena said, keeping her voice steady. He's expecting me. One guard spoke into a radio. 30 seconds later, the gate rolled open. The courtyard was exactly as the schematics had shown. Concrete square surrounded by industrial buildings, loading docks, scattered equipment. Lights positioned to illuminate the center while leaving the edges in shadow. Lena walked into the light, acutely aware of weapons trained on her from multiple angles. A door opened in the main building. Victor emerged. He was younger than she expected, maybe 40, with the build of someone who'd stayed military fit long after leaving the service. He wore an expensive suit that looked wrong in this industrial setting, like a predator trying to pass for civilized. So this is the girl worth 2 soldiers. Victor circled her slowly, evaluating. Thomas paid 30,000 for you. I'd have paid twice that. You're lovely, even in those pedestrian clothes. Lena forced herself to stand still under his scrutiny. Where are Marcus's men? Direct. I like that. Victor snapped his fingers. The door opened again and 2 men were shoved out, Alexei and James bound and gagged but alive. Both looked like they'd been beaten, but they could walk. As promised, alive and relatively undamaged. Where's Marcus? He doesn't negotiate personally with people like you. Lena delivered the line exactly as practiced, letting contempt color her voice. He sent me instead. His terms are simple. You release them, I stay, you leave the city. Victor laughed. Leave the city? Does he think I'm stupid? The moment I release them, he storms this place and kills everyone. He moved closer to Lena, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive trying to mask the scent of violence. No, here's what happens. You stay. They stay. And Marcus sends me $50,000 as a gesture of good faith. Then maybe we talk about releases. That wasn't the deal. Deals change. Victor reached out, grabbed her chin, forced her to meet his eyes. You're going to call Marcus now. Tell him the new terms. And if he doesn't comply within the hour, I start removing fingers from his men until he does. This was the moment. The pivot point where everything either worked or collapsed. Lena jerked her chin free. No. Victor's expression shifted from amused to dangerous. What did you say? I said no. She took a step back, creating distance. You think I'm some helpless girl Marcus is protecting? You think he'd trade 2 trained soldiers for 1 victim? She laughed, sharp and bitter. He sent me here because I'm expendable, because he knew you'd focus on me while his team took back what's his. For one beautiful second, confusion crossed Victor's face, then understanding, then fury. Light them up, he shouted to his men. Find the... Gunfire erupted from 3 directions at once. Marcus's teams had been in position the entire time, waiting for Lena's revelation to pull Victor's focus exactly where they needed it. The snipers on the roof took out Victor's guards in the courtyard with precision shots. Ground teams breached through the side entrances Chen had marked, moving fast and lethal. Lena dropped and rolled behind a concrete barrier, exactly as Marina had drilled into her. Bullets shattered the air above her head. She pulled the knife from her boot, small comfort against automatic weapons, but better than nothing. Victor had pulled his own gun, was screaming orders to men who were already dead or dying. His attention snapped back to Lena, the cause of his unraveling, and something murderous flashed in his eyes. He moved toward her position, gun raised. Lena's training crystallized into pure instinct. She waited until he was close enough, then exploded from behind the barrier. Not to fight him directly, she wasn't that stupid, but to create the opening Marina had promised would appear. She threw the knife, not at Victor, but at the spotlight behind him. The light exploded in a shower of sparks and glass. Darkness swallowed that section of the courtyard. In the chaos, Lena ran. She made it 5 steps before someone grabbed her from behind. Not Victor, one of his men, opportunistic in the confusion. He wrapped an arm around her throat, choking off her air. Everything Marina had taught her came roaring back. Lena dropped her weight, drove her elbow into his ribs, twisted with the momentum. The hold broke. She spun and drove her palm up into his nose with every ounce of strength she had. The crack was audible even over the gunfire. He went down. Lena grabbed his dropped weapon. She had no idea what kind, just that it was heavy and had a trigger. She'd never fired a gun before. Marcus had planned to train her after she'd mastered hand-to-hand. She was about to get a crash course. Victor appeared through the smoke and darkness, his suit jacket torn, blood on his face. He saw her holding the weapon and smiled like a shark. You don't have the spine, he said, raising his own gun. Girls like you don't pull triggers. You freeze. You hesitate. Lena shot him. The recoil nearly knocked her over, the sound deafening, but the bullet hit center mass. Victor looked down at the spreading red on his shirt with almost comical surprise. You shot me, he said. Lena shot him again. He dropped. She stood there shaking, weapons still raised, as the courtyard went silent around her. The firefight had lasted maybe 90 seconds. Victor's men were down. Marcus's teams were already securing the area, checking bodies, extracting Alexei and James. And then Marcus was there, materializing out of the shadows like some dark guardian. He took the weapon from her hands, gently, carefully, like she might shatter. "You're okay," he said. Not a question, a command. "You're okay. Breathe." Lena couldn't. She was staring at Victor's body, at the blood pooling beneath him, at the proof of what she'd just done. "I killed him," she whispered. "Yes." Marcus guided her face away from the corpse, forced her to look at him instead. "You defended yourself. You did what you had to do, and you're alive. Focus on that." Chen appeared beside them. "Area's secure. Alexei needs medical attention, but he'll make it. James is roughed up but stable. Victor's men are all down. We've got maybe 10 minutes before police response, less if someone called it in already." "Get everyone out," Marcus ordered. "Clean sweep protocol. Marina, take Lena to the secondary vehicle." "I can walk," Lena said, but her legs chose that moment to give out. Marcus caught her before she hit the ground. "I've got you," he said, and carried her. The extraction happened in a blur. Lena sat in the back of a different SUV wrapped in someone's jacket, while Marina drove them through a maze of streets designed to lose any potential tail. By the time they reached the fortress, Lena had stopped shaking but couldn't seem to get warm. Marcus brought her inside, sat her down in the living room, wrapped her in a blanket. He poured her something amber from a crystal decanter. "Drink," he said. Lena drank. It burned all the way down, but the fire felt grounding, real. "You crossed a line tonight," Marcus said quietly. He sat across from her, close enough to reach, but giving her space. "Took a life. That's not something you come back from unchanged. I need you to understand that." "I know." Lena stared at her hands. No visible blood, but she could feel it anyway. "He was going to kill me." "He was. You had no choice. But knowing that intellectually and feeling it in your bones are different things." Marcus leaned forward. "The first person I killed, I was 23. Gang member who pulled a knife on my sister during a mugging. I beat him to death with my bare hands. Afterwards, I threw up for an hour. Couldn't sleep for a week. Kept seeing his face, hearing the sounds he made when he died." "Does it get easier?" "No. It gets familiar. There's a difference." He took the glass from her, refilled it, handed it back. "But you should also know what you did tonight, the distraction with the spotlight, the way you handled yourself when Victor came at you. That was remarkable. You saved Alexei and James. You gave my team the opening they needed. You're the reason everyone came home alive. I don't feel heroic. I feel sick." "Good. That means you're still human." Marcus stood, moved to the windows overlooking the black ocean. "The day killing doesn't make you feel sick is the day you've become the thing we're fighting against. Hold on to that feeling. Let it remind you why we do this. Not because violence is easy, but because sometimes it's necessary to stop worse violence." Lena finished the drink. The warmth was spreading through her chest now, making everything slightly fuzzy. "What happens now?" "Now you rest. Tomorrow we debrief. Victor's organization will fracture without him. Some will try to take over, most will scatter. We'll monitor the situation, clean up the pieces." He turned to face her. "And you decide what comes next. You've proven yourself tonight. You're not a victim anymore, Lena. You're dangerous. That means you get to choose how to use that danger." Marina appeared in the doorway. "Medical cleared both Alexei and James. They're asking to see her." Marcus looked at Lena. "You up for it?" She stood, still wrapped in the blanket. "Yeah, I want to see them." Alexei and James were in the medical room, a full clinic set up on the first floor that Lena hadn't even known existed. Both men looked like hell, bruised and bandaged, but alive. When Lena entered, they straightened despite obvious pain. "We heard what you did," Alexei said. He was Russian, accent thick, with kind eyes and a brutal face. "Coming in alone, making yourself bait. That took serious courage." "Or serious stupidity," James added with a rough laugh. He was younger, maybe 30, with a Marine Corps tattoo visible on his forearm. "Either way, we owe you. Both of us. You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did." Lena surprised herself with the conviction in her voice. "Victor took you because of me, because I was here. Getting you back was my responsibility." "Marcus's people don't work like that," Alexei said gently. "We all chose this life. We knew the risks." "Maybe, but I still chose to help." Lena looked between them. "Are you going to be okay?" "We'll heal." James shifted, winced. "Nothing broken that won't mend, and knowing Victor's dead makes the bruises hurt less." "You did that, yeah? Chen said you put 2 in him." Lena nodded. "Good. James's expression was fierce with approval. First time's always hard, but you did it anyway. That makes you one of us now. Someone Marcus can trust in the field. After visiting with them, Lena returned to her room and collapsed on the bed without changing. Sleep claimed her instantly, deep and dreamless. She woke to afternoon sunlight and the sound of waves. For several heartbeats, she didn't remember. Then it all came rushing back. Victor's warehouse, the gunfire, the weight of the weapon in her hands, the look on his face when he realized she'd actually pulled the trigger. Lena rolled over and saw Marcus sitting in the chair by her window. "How long have you been there?" she asked. "Couple hours? Wanted to make sure you were okay." He held up a book. "Been reading." "That's kind of creepy." "Yes." He didn't apologize or make excuses. You sleep better with someone watching. Combat stress response. Your subconscious knows you're safe if there's a guard. Lena sat up, pushing hair out of her face. "How do you know that?" "Because I'm the same way." Marcus set down the book. "After Sarah died, I couldn't sleep alone for 6 months. Kept waking up convinced someone had broken in, that I'd failed to protect someone else. Chen used to take shifts sitting in my room until the anxiety passed." "Did it pass?" "Eventually. Mostly." He stood, stretched. "There's food downstairs when you're ready. Team debrief is at 6 if you want to sit in. Not required, but the offer's there." Lena attended the debrief. The tactical team gathered in Marcus's office, going through the operation step by step. What worked, what didn't, how to improve for next time. They treated Lena like a full member, asking her perspective on Victor's responses, incorporating her observations into their analysis. "The spotlight maneuver was good thinking," Chen said, pulling up building schematics. "Created the cover we needed for the close quarters breach. We should incorporate that into the playbook, civilian assets using environmental disruption rather than direct engagement." "I'm not a civilian asset," Lena said. "I'm just someone who broke a light." "You're someone who kept her head and made tactical decisions under fire," Marcus corrected. "That's the definition of an asset. The question is whether you want to be one again." Everyone looked at her. Lena thought about the past 3 weeks. About transforming from a waitress who couldn't protect herself into someone who'd walked into a hostile situation and come out alive. About Alexei and James safe because she'd been brave. About Victor dead because she'd been dangerous. "Yes," she said, "I want in. Whatever that means, however you need me, I'm in." Marcus smiled, genuine and warm. "Welcome to the team." The weeks following Victor's death transformed Lena's role in ways she hadn't anticipated. She'd expected to remain on the periphery, learning but not truly participating. Instead, Marcus pulled her deeper into the operation with each passing day. It started small. He asked her opinion during strategy sessions, consulted her on decisions about which operations to prioritize, introduced her to his network of contacts, police detectives who looked the other way, social workers who funneled rescued women to safe houses, lawyers who specialized in making problems disappear. "You see things differently than we do," Marcus explained one morning over coffee. They'd fallen into a routine of early conversations, the house still quiet around them, the ocean gray in pre-dawn light. "The team and I, we've been doing this so long we sometimes miss the obvious. You ask questions we stopped asking years ago. It's valuable." "Like what?" Lena cradled her mug, breathing in steam. "Like last week, when Chen proposed hitting that warehouse on the south side. You asked why we were prioritizing it over the hotel operation downtown. Chen said it was because the warehouse had more women. You pointed out the hotel had younger women, which meant they'd been in the system less time, which meant extraction would be easier and trauma potentially less severe." Marcus refilled his own cup. Chen's thinking was tactical. Yours was strategic. Both matter, but strategy wins wars. Lena thought about that. "I'm not trying to second-guess your people." "I know. You're trying to understand. That's exactly what I need." He moved to the windows, watching the sun climb above the horizon. "Most of my team are former military or law enforcement. They're brilliant at execution, but they think in terms of operations and objectives. You think in terms of people, women who were where you were. That perspective keeps us human." The words settled between them, heavy with meaning. Lena was still learning to unpack. Marcus rarely spoke about emotions directly, but she'd learned to read the subtext in his silences, the careful way he chose words when discussing anything personal. "Can I ask you something?" she said after a moment. "You keep saying you're not a good man, that you do bad things, but everything I've seen you do has been about protecting people, saving them. Where's the bad part?"
Marcus was quiet for a long time, his reflection in the window stark against the lightening sky. The bad part is what I enjoy, he said finally. Killing Victor didn't feel like a necessary evil to me, Lena. It felt like justice. And when I pulled that trigger, when I watched him realize he was dying, I felt satisfaction. Not guilt, not regret. Satisfaction. He turned to face her. Good men don't enjoy violence. They tolerate it when necessary. I seek it out. I hunt people and I end them, and I sleep perfectly well afterwards. That's the difference. Maybe you're just honest about what survival requires. Lena met his eyes. Everyone else pretends violence is something that happens to other people, in other places. You acknowledge it's here, now, and you do something about it. I don't think that makes you bad. I think it makes you real. Something shifted in Marcus's expression. A crack in the armor, brief but genuine. You have more faith in me than I deserve. Or you have less faith in yourself than you've earned. Before he could respond, Marina entered with news that derailed the conversation entirely. A contact had information about a major trafficking network operating through the port. Multiple shipments, dozens of women, connection to an organization Marcus had been tracking for months. The operation consumed the next 2 weeks. Lena found herself in the center of it, no longer just observing but actively participating. She learned to analyze shipping manifests, to spot patterns in seemingly random data, to build profiles of the men running the network. She also learned she was good at it. Very good. You have a gift for seeing connections, Marcus told her after she'd identified a shell company linking 3 apparently separate operations. Most people look at data and see information. You look at it and see stories. Who's connected to whom, what their motivations are, where the vulnerabilities exist. I think it's because I was on the other side, Lena said. They were in his office, surrounded by monitors displaying surveillance feeds and financial records. I know what it feels like to be powerless, to have your choices taken away. When I look at these operations, I don't see abstract targets. I see the women trapped in them. What they're thinking, what they're hoping for, what they're afraid of. Marcus studied her with an intensity that made her pulse quicken. That empathy could destroy you if you're not careful. You can't save everyone, Lena. Some situations, we arrive too late. Some women, the trauma runs too deep to heal. You have to make peace with that, or it will eat you alive. How do you make peace with it? I don't. His admission came quietly. I just keep moving forward. Save the next one. Shut down the next operation. Kill the next predator. Stay busy enough that I don't have time to count the failures. Lena understood that more than she wanted to admit. Since Victor's warehouse, she'd had nightmares. Not about killing him, that still felt like justice, but about all the hypothetical scenarios where she'd failed, where Victor had been faster, where the team hadn't breached in time, where Alexei and James had died because she'd made the wrong choice. Marcus seemed to sense her thoughts. You're doing it right now. Replaying that night, finding all the ways it could have gone wrong. How did you know? Because I do the same thing. Every operation, every decision, I map the alternate outcomes where people die. He pulled up a chair beside her, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. The key is not letting those hypothetical failures paralyze you. Learn from them, adjust your planning, but don't let them stop you from acting when action is needed. Over the following days, the port operation crystallized into a concrete plan. The network was larger than they'd initially thought. Not just trafficking, but a full criminal enterprise with political connections reaching into city government. Taking it down would require more than a simple raid. It would require dismantling the entire structure. We need to cut off the head and the body simultaneously, Marcus explained during a strategy session with his full team. Hit their leadership, their infrastructure, and their political protection all at once. Leave them no room to rebuild. Chen pulled up organizational charts. Leadership is concentrated. 3 men at the top, Richard Castellano, Michael Yu, and Thomas Brennan. They're insulated by layers of intermediaries, but they all attend a monthly coordination meeting. When's the next meeting? Lena asked. 2 weeks. Private club downtown, top floor, extensive security. So we wait 2 weeks and hit them there, James said. He'd healed from Victor's beatings, though he still moved carefully. Catch them all together. Marcus shook his head. Too predictable. They'll expect that play after what happened to Victor. We need something they won't see coming. Lena had been studying the financial records, tracing money flows through the network. An idea had been forming, dangerous and unlikely, but potentially perfect.
What if we don't hit them? She said. Everyone turned to look at her. What if we make them hit each other? Marcus leaned forward. Explain. They trust each other because they have to. The network only works if all three coordinate. But that trust is built on shared profit. Lena pulled up the financial data she'd been analyzing. What if we manipulate the numbers to make it look like one of them is skimming, stealing from the others? Create enough suspicion that they turn on each other. They'd verify the records, Chen said, but she sounded thoughtful rather than dismissive. Only if they suspect the records might be wrong. If we're subtle enough, if the discrepancies look like real theft rather than fabrication. Lena worked the keyboard, showing them patterns she'd identified. Look here. Michael used legitimate businesses show regular cash deposits that don't quite match the amounts listed in the network's books. The difference is small enough to miss unless you're looking for it, but consistent enough to be a pattern. You think he's already stealing? Marina asked. No, I think he's sloppy with his bookkeeping. But Castellano and Brennan don't know that. If we create evidence suggesting the pattern is intentional, suggesting Yu is taking more than his share, they'd confront him, Marcus finished, understanding dawning in his eyes. And when he denies it, they'd see that as confirmation rather than defense. Standard psychology of accusation. We could amplify it, Chen added, getting excited now. Plant evidence that Yu's been meeting with federal investigators. Make it look like he's preparing to flip, to trade information for immunity. Then Castellano and Brennan eliminate what they see as a threat, Lena said. We let them do our work for us. And while they're focused on their internal crisis, we hit their infrastructure. The shipments, the safe houses, the political contacts. Dismantle everything while they're too busy eating each other to notice. Marcus stood, paced to the windows, thinking it through. The room waited in silence. Finally, he turned back to them. It's good, he said. It's very good. But it requires precision we've never attempted before. Financial manipulation, evidence fabrication, timing coordination across multiple teams. One mistake, and the whole thing collapses. I can handle the financial part, Lena said. I've been tracking their money for weeks. I know their patterns well enough to forge records that'll pass scrutiny. That's forgery and conspiracy and about 6 other felonies. Marcus's expression was unreadable. You understand what you're volunteering for? This isn't self-defense like Victor. This is premeditated criminal activity. I understand. Lena held his gaze. But if it saves the women in their network, if it prevents more women from ending up where I almost did, I'll take that trade. The room stayed quiet for a moment. Then Alexei spoke up, his accent thick with approval. I like this plan. It's smart. Uses their paranoia against them. I agree, Chen said. We've always been reactive, responding to threats, hitting targets after the damage is done. This is proactive. It's a different kind of warfare. Marcus looked around at his team, then back to Lena. Something had changed in his eyes. A shift from protective distance to genuine partnership. All right, he said. We do it. Lena, your point on the financial operation. Chen, you handle evidence fabrication. Marina, coordinate the infrastructure hits for when they're distracted. Everyone else, prepare for rapid deployment. We move in 10 days. The planning consumed them. Lena spent 18-hour days building the fraudulent financial trail, each entry carefully crafted to look authentic while telling the story they needed Castellano and Brennan to believe. She consulted with Marcus constantly, refining the narrative, adjusting amounts, ensuring consistency. They worked late into the nights, the house dark and quiet around them, just the two of them and the glow of computer screens. You're good at this, Marcus said one night, watching her work. Too good. Makes me wonder what you could have been if Raymond hadn't trapped you. Maybe a forensic accountant, Lena said wryly, fighting fraud from inside the system instead of outside it. You'd have been bored in 6 months. Probably. She saved her work, leaned back in her chair. Her neck ached from hunching over the keyboard. Can I ask you something personal? You can ask? Why haven't you tried to kiss me? The question hung in the air between them, sharp and unexpected. Marcus went very still. Because you're under my protection, he said finally. Because power dynamics matter. Because I won't be another man who takes something from you without permission. What if I gave permission? Then I'd question your judgment. His voice was rough. You're 21, Lena. I'm 37. You've been here less than 2 months. You're still processing trauma, still figuring out who you are outside of survival mode.
The last thing you need is me complicating that. You don't get to decide what I need. No, but I get to decide what kind of man I am. Marcus stood, putting distance between them. I care about you. More than I should, probably. But that's exactly why I won't pursue this. You deserve someone who doesn't have blood on his hands. Someone who can give you normal. Lena stood too, moved to where he was standing by the windows. I don't want normal. Normal got me sold. Normal almost got me killed. What I want is someone who sees me as strong enough to make my own choices, even if those choices include wanting you. Lena, I killed a man, Marcus. I'm planning financial fraud that'll trigger a gang war. I train with weapons every morning and sit in on strategy sessions about dismantling criminal empires. Do I seem like someone who wants normal to you? He looked at her then, really looked, and she saw the war happening behind his eyes. Want versus responsibility. Desire versus protection. The man who'd spent 5 years trying to save his sister versus the man standing in front of a woman who didn't need saving. If we do this, he said quietly, there's no going back. My life isn't safe. Being with me means being a target, always looking over your shoulder, always ready for violence. It means accepting that I'll do terrible things and expecting you to live with that. Are you prepared for what that costs? I'm already living that life, Lena said. The only question is whether I'm living it alone or with someone who understands it. Marcus reached out slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. His hand cupped her face, thumb brushing across her cheekbone with surprising gentleness. You're sure? He asked. I'm sure. He kissed her then, and it felt like falling and flying simultaneously. His hands were careful despite the strength in them, his mouth warm and demanding. Lena pressed closer, fisting her hands in his shirt, and felt something in her chest crack open, not breaking but expanding, making room for this dangerous want she'd been denying for weeks. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Marcus rested his forehead against hers. This is a terrible idea, he said. Probably. Lena smiled, but I've been making terrible decisions since the day I met you. Might as well commit to the pattern. He laughed, short and surprised, and kissed her again. The operation launched 6 days later. Lena's fabricated financial records were planted through a contact in Yu's accounting firm, designed to be discovered during routine auditing. Simultaneously, Chen arranged for Castellano's people to receive anonymous tips about Yu's meetings with federal investigators, complete with doctored surveillance photos showing him at a federal building. The response was faster than they'd anticipated. Within 48 hours, Yu was dead, killed in what police labeled a home invasion, but Marcus's sources confirmed was an execution ordered by Castellano and Brennan. They took the bait, Chen reported during the emergency briefing she called. Yu's organization is in chaos. His lieutenants don't know whether to retaliate against Castellano and Brennan or try to take over Yu's territory themselves. That's our window, Marcus said. Marina, deploy teams to the safe houses. Get those women out before the power vacuum turns violent. James, Alexei, you hit the port operations. Shut down the shipments. Chen, you're with me. We're paying Castellano and Brennan a visit. What about me? Lena asked. Marcus looked at her for a long moment. They hadn't discussed their relationship publicly, but something in his expression made it clear the team already knew, or suspected, or simply didn't care. You stay here and coordinate, he said. This is the dangerous part. Active combat, moving targets, high probability of casualties. I need you safe. That's not the deal we made. The deal we made was that you're part of this team. Part of being on a team is accepting assignments even when you don't like them. His voice was firm but not unkind. You built this operation, Lena. You found the vulnerability and created the strategy. That's your role. Let us handle execution. She wanted to argue, wanted to insist she'd earned the right to see this through to the end. But looking at his face, at the barely concealed fear beneath the tactical command, she understood. He'd lost Sarah because he hadn't protected her. He wouldn't survive losing Lena, too. Fine, she said. But you come back. All of you. That's not a request. Deal. Marcus kissed her forehead, quick and possessive, then turned to his team. Let's move. The next 6 hours were agony. Lena sat in the command center with Marina, watching surveillance feeds and monitoring communications. Teams deployed across the city, hitting targets simultaneously, extracting women from safe houses while the network's leadership was too distracted to respond. The scoreboard mounted on the wall tracked progress. 12 women extracted. 15. 20.
Each number a life saved, a victory against the darkness. Then Marina's radio crackled with urgency. Command, this is Team 3. We've got a problem at the port. Armed resistance, heavier than anticipated. Requesting immediate backup. That was James and Alexei's team. Lena's hands clenched on the desk. Team 1, divert to port, Marina ordered. Team 2, maintain extraction protocols. Team 1 is engaged at the Castellano location. Chen's voice came through, strained. Gunfire echoed behind her words. We've got our hands full. Brennan's people showed up. It's turning into a war zone. Marina cursed, switching channels rapidly, trying to coordinate response across multiple active situations. Lena watched the feeds, saw Chen's team pinned down, saw Team 3 at the port taking fire from an elevated position. We're spread too thin, Marina muttered. We need more people, but everyone's committed. Lena made a decision. Send me. Absolutely not. I can drive, I can shoot. Team 3 needs backup and we don't have anyone else. Lena was already moving toward the weapons locker. You said it yourself. Everyone's committed, except me. Marcus will kill me if I let you go into active combat. Marcus will forgive you when I bring his people home alive. Lena grabbed a vest, checked a weapon with movements Marina had drilled into her over months of training. I'm going. You can help me by giving me tactical support, or I can go blind. Your choice. Marina stared at her for 3 seconds. Then she grabbed a radio, tossed it to Lena. Channel 7, keep the line open, follow my directions exactly. And if you die, I'm telling Marcus it was your idea. Deal. The drive to the port took 12 minutes that felt like hours. Lena listened to radio chatter, heard Chen's team fighting their way out of Castellano's building, heard Team 3's situation deteriorating. By the time she arrived, 3 of their people were wounded and they were pinned behind shipping containers. Team 3, this is backup, Lena said into her radio. Where do you need me? North side, elevated position, James's voice came back, tight with pain. 2 shooters, maybe 3. We can't advance until they're neutralized. Lena circled around through the container yard, using lessons learned from dozens of training sessions with Marina. Stay low, move quiet, use cover. She found the elevated position, a scaffolding platform overlooking the loading area. 3 men, just as James had estimated. They were focused on Team 3's position, hadn't noticed her approach. Lena lined up her shot, remembered Victor's warehouse, remembered that sometimes survival required violence. She fired. The first man dropped. The second and third spun toward her location. Lena dropped behind cover as bullets shredded the air where she'd been standing. Her hands shook, but her mind stayed clear, counting shots, timing their reload. When the firing paused, she moved, came up in a different position, fired twice more. Another man down. The last shooter ran, abandoning his position. James's voice crackled through the radio. Clear. Good shooting. Where the hell did you come from? Command sent backup, Lena said, not mentioning the backup was just her. What's your status? Alexei took one in the leg, but he'll make it. We've secured the shipment manifests and extraction is complete. 3 women recovered, all alive. 3 more lives. 3 more women who wouldn't disappear into the darkness. By the time Marcus returned to the fortress, the operation was over. 27 women extracted, both Castellano and Brennan dead in the firefight at Castellano's building. U's organization scattered, the entire network dismantled in a single coordinated strike. Lena was in the command center helping Marina file reports when Marcus walked in. He looked exhausted, blood on his shirt that might or might not be his own, but alive. Relief hit her so hard her knees went weak. Then his eyes found hers, and she saw the moment Marina told him through their private channel what Lena had done. You went to the port, he said. Not a question. Team 3 needed backup. So you decided to provide it yourself? Against explicit orders to stay here? Against a suggestion that I stay here, Lena corrected. We're partners, Marcus. Partners don't give each other orders. They make decisions together, and I decided saving your people was worth the risk. The room had gone very quiet. Marina suddenly found something fascinating to study on her computer screen. Marcus crossed the distance between them in 3 strides. For a moment, Lena thought he might yell, might pull rank, might remind her of all the reasons she shouldn't have gone. Instead, he kissed her, hard and desperate and grateful. Don't ever do that again, he said against her mouth. Can't promise that. I know. He pulled back, looked at her like he was memorizing her face. Marina said you took out 2 hostiles, cleared Team 3's exit, and didn't hesitate once. Said you were calm under fire. Professional. Marina taught me well. Marina taught you basics. What you did today? That was all you. Marcus cupped her face in both hands. You're not a victim anymore, Lena. You haven't been for a while. I just didn't want to admit it, because admitting it means accepting you're choosing to stay in this life. I am choosing it, Lena said firmly. The violence, the danger, the mission, all of it. Because this is the only place I've ever felt like I mattered. Like what I did made a real difference. It does. You do. Marcus kissed her forehead, gentle this time. 27 women free because you saw a pattern in financial records. 3 more alive because you backed up my team when they needed it. You've saved more lives in 2 months than most people save in a lifetime. We saved them. Together. Together, he agreed. Then his expression turned serious. But if we're doing this, really doing this as partners, you need to understand something. I love you. I've been fighting it for weeks, telling myself it was too soon, too complicated, too dangerous. But watching you walk into danger tonight, knowing I might lose you, I can't pretend anymore. I love you. And that terrifies me more than anything I've ever faced. Lena's heart hammered against her ribs. Marcus, you don't have to say it back. You don't have to feel the same way. I just need you to know that's what you mean to me. So when I ask you to stay safe, when I try to protect you, it's not because I think you're weak. It's because losing you would destroy what's left of me. She kissed him then, pouring everything she couldn't say into the press of her mouth against his. When they broke apart, she whispered against his lips, I love you too. I think I have since you offered me your hand in that penthouse, since you gave me a choice when I'd never had one before. They stood there in the command center, wrapped in each other, while Marina quietly excused herself and the team gave them privacy. Outside, dawn was breaking over the ocean. 27 women were beginning their journeys toward healing. A network that had destroyed lives was ash and memory. And in a fortress by the water, 2 people who'd both known darkness had found something bright enough to fight for. The months following the port operation brought changes that rippled through Marcus's entire organization. With Castellano, Brennan, and Yu's network dismantled, a power vacuum opened across the city. Smaller operators tried to fill the void, but none had the infrastructure or connections to rebuild what had been destroyed. Marcus used the chaos strategically. He identified the operators trying to restart trafficking operations and eliminated them with surgical precision. The ones running drugs or gambling or protection rackets, the criminals who stayed away from human exploitation, he left alone. His war had a specific target, and he refused to dilute his focus. Lena became instrumental in that targeting. She'd developed an instinct for patterns that bordered on supernatural, connecting dots across financial records, surveillance reports, and intelligence gathering that revealed networks others missed. Where Marcus's team saw individual criminals, Lena saw the web connecting them, the money flows and power structures that enabled their operations. You think differently than we do, Chen said one afternoon. They were in the command center, analyzing a potential operation. Military training teaches you to see the battlefield. You see the battlefield and the economy and the psychology all at once. I just remember what it felt like to be powerless, Lena said, highlighting a connection between 2 shell companies. When you understand how they use money and fear to trap people, it's easier to see where the system's vulnerable. Chen studied the connections Lena had marked. This is good, really good. If we hit these 3 points simultaneously, the whole structure collapses. That's the idea. Lena saved the file, stretched her arms over her head. Her body had changed over the months. Leaner, stronger, carrying muscle from daily training. She could run 5 miles without stopping now. Could disassemble and reassemble a dozen different weapons blindfolded. Could read a room for threats in seconds. The girl in the red dress was a distant memory, replaced by someone harder and more dangerous, but also happier. That was the part that surprised her most. Marcus found her on the terrace that evening, watching sunset paint the ocean in shades of amber and rose. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, chin resting on top of her head. "Penny, for your thoughts," he said. "Just thinking about how different everything is now." Lena leaned back against his chest. 6 months ago, I was serving coffee and letting Raymond steal my paychecks. Now I'm planning tactical operations and living in a fortress with the man I love. It doesn't feel real sometimes. Does it feel right? It feels perfect. She turned in his arms to face him. Which is what scares me. Nothing this good lasts. Something always comes to destroy it. Marcus's expression grew serious. Is that what you're waiting for? The other shoe to drop? Aren't you? He was quiet for a moment, looking out at the darkening water. Every day, he admitted. Every time you leave this house, every operation you participate in, I'm waiting for the call that you've been hurt. Or worse. It's a special kind of torture. Loving someone and knowing the life you've chosen puts them in constant danger. You could ask me to stop, Lena said. To stay here, stay safe. Let you and the team handle the dangerous work. I could, but I won't. Marcus cupped her face, thumb brushing across her cheekbone. Because I fell in love with the woman who walked into Victor's warehouse as bait, who took out hostiles at the port to save my people. Who sees human trafficking networks as puzzles to solve rather than nightmares to avoid? Asking you to stop would be asking you to be someone you're not. Even if it means you worry constantly? Especially then. My worry is my problem to manage, not your freedom to sacrifice. He kissed her forehead. Besides, you're better at this than I am in some ways. You see things I miss, make connections I wouldn't find. We're stronger together than apart. Partners, Lena said, repeating the word that had become their foundation. Partners, Marcus agreed. The conversation was interrupted by Marina appearing in the doorway. Sorry to interrupt, but we've got a situation. Conference room, 5 minutes. The team assembled quickly. Chen pulled up surveillance footage showing a warehouse on the east side, men loading women into cargo containers under armed guard. We got a tip about this 2 hours ago, Marina explained. The operation's bigger than we initially thought. Looks like someone's trying to rebuild Castellano's network. They've got at least 30 women staged for shipment tonight. 30? Lena's stomach turned. Where are they going? Overseas, based on the shipping manifest we intercepted. Once those containers leave port, we'll never find them. Chen zoomed in on the guards. Heavy security, well armed. Whoever's running this has serious resources. Marcus studied the footage with the focused intensity Lena recognized as him already planning the assault. How much time do we have? Shipment scheduled for midnight, 4 hours. Not enough time for a proper operation, James said. He'd fully healed from Victor's warehouse, though he still favored his left side. We'd be going in half prepared against unknown opposition. We don't have a choice, Lena said. Everyone turned to look at her. Those women get on that ship, they're gone forever. We might not be perfectly prepared, but we're more prepared than they are to save themselves. She's right, Alexei added, his accent thick with conviction. We've run operations with less planning. We adapt. Marcus was quiet, weighing options with visible calculation. Finally, he nodded. We go. Fast and loud. Teams of 3, multiple entry points, overwhelming force. Chen, I want blueprints of that warehouse in 10 minutes. Marina, weapons and gear for everyone. James, Alexei, coordinate vehicle deployment. Lena, I'm coming, she said before he could finish. I know, I was going to say you're with me. Marcus met her eyes. This is going to be messy. More guards than we've faced before. Tight quarters, civilians in the line of fire. If things go wrong, they'll go wrong fast. You sure you're ready for this? Lena thought about the 30 women in those containers. Women who were probably terrified, maybe injured, definitely hopeless. Women who didn't know rescue was coming because they'd stopped believing rescue was possible. I'm ready, she said. The team moved with practiced efficiency. Within 30 minutes, they were armed, briefed, and rolling toward the warehouse in 3 vehicles. Lena rode with Marcus and Marina, checking her weapon for the 3rd time, feeling adrenaline sharpen her senses. You're quiet, Marcus observed. Just focusing. Lena chambered around, thinking about the women we're about to save, wondering how many of them are like I was, trapped by family, by debt, by circumstances they didn't choose. All of them, probably. Marcus's jaw tightened. That's what makes these operations so important. We're not just stopping trafficking. We're giving people their lives back. They arrived at a staging point 3 blocks from the warehouse. Chen distributed comm units, ran through the plan one final time. Team 1 would breach the main entrance. Team 2 would come through the loading dock. Team 3, Marcus, Lena, and Marina, would enter through the roof access. Remember, civilians first, Marcus said. Get those women out before you engage if possible, but don't hesitate if you're threatened. These people chose this work. They know the risks. The teams split up. Lena followed Marcus and Marina up a fire escape to the warehouse roof. her heart hammering but her hands steady. They'd done this before. She knew her role, knew her capabilities, knew Marcus would do everything possible to keep her safe while still trusting her to handle herself. That trust mattered more than protection ever could. They reached the roof access. Marcus tested the door, locked but a weak lock. He forced it with a pry bar, the sound masked by machinery noise from inside. They descended into darkness, night vision goggles turning everything green and strange. The warehouse was divided into sections: storage area with the containers in the back, processing area in the middle, guard station near the front entrance. Marcus signaled for them to move toward the containers, staying high on the catwalks. Lena could see the women now, clustered in groups, some sitting with their heads down, others standing and looking around with desperate eyes. All of them young, all of them terrified. She thought about the penthouse, about Thomas's hands on her chin, about how close she'd come to being in one of those containers herself. Marcus touched her arm, pulled her attention back to the mission. He pointed to 6 guards positioned around the containers, then signaled the count for simultaneous breach. 3, 2, 1. Teams 1 and 2 crashed through the doors at ground level. Chaos erupted instantly, shouting, gunfire, men scrambling for weapons. Marcus rappelled down from the catwalk with Marina and Lena right behind him, landing in the section with the containers. "Federal agents!" Marcus shouted, a lie they used to avoid panic. "Everyone on the ground! Now!" The women screamed and dropped. The guards opened fire. Lena moved on instinct, training taking over thought. She took cover behind a container, returned fire at the nearest guard. Her shot took him in the shoulder, spinning him around. Marina finished him with a headshot. More guards poured in from the office section. Team 1 was pinned down at the entrance, taking heavy fire. Team 2 had secured the loading dock, but couldn't advance. Marcus was coordinating movement, trying to push forward while keeping the civilians protected. Then Lena saw him, the man directing the guards, shouting orders from an elevated office overlooking the warehouse floor. Tall, well-dressed, with the kind of confidence that came from thinking you were untouchable. He was also holding a detonator. "Marcus," Lena pointed. "The office! He's got a trigger!" Marcus's eyes went wide. He grabbed his radio. "All teams fall back. Possible explosives. Fall back now." But the man in the office had already seen them looking. He smiled, cold and cruel, and raised the detonator. Lena didn't think. She aimed and fired. The distance was impossible. 40 yards, elevated target, active firefight creating chaos. She shouldn't have been able to make the shot. But Marina had trained her. Marcus had believed in her, and desperation made her steady. The bullet hit the man's hand. The detonator flew from his grip, clattered across the office floor. He dove for it. "Chen," Marcus barked into the radio. "Office, second floor, detonator, stop him!" Chen was already moving. She vaulted over a railing, sprinted across a catwalk, and crashed through the office window in a shower of glass. Lena heard shouting, a brief struggle, then Chen's voice on the radio. "Detonator secured, target neutralized." The firefight lasted another 3 minutes, but without their leader, and without the threat of explosives, the guards broke. Some surrendered, most ran. Marcus's team secured the warehouse with brutal efficiency. When the shooting stopped, 32 women were safe. 5 guards were dead, 7 more in custody. The shipping containers revealed evidence of a network even larger than Castellanos: names, routes, contacts across 3 continents. Lena sat on a cargo container, hands shaking now that the adrenaline was fading, while Marcus coordinated extraction of the women. Police would arrive soon, the ones on Marcus's payroll who'd file reports that wouldn't mention his team's involvement. The women would be taken to safe houses, given medical care and counseling, offered choices about their futures. Marina sat down beside her. "Hell of a shot." "I got lucky." "No, you got good." Marina bumped her shoulder. "You've come a long way from the scared girl in the red dress. Marcus must be proud."
Is he? Lena looked over to where Marcus was directing his people, orchestrating the cleanup with the same precision he brought to everything. "Sometimes I think he still sees me as someone who needs protecting." "He does. We all do. Everyone on this team protects each other, but he also sees you as his partner, his equal." Marina stood, offered Lena her hand. "That's rarer than you think. Marcus doesn't do partnerships. He does command structures and loyalty and calculated alliances. But you're different. You changed him." Lena let Marina pull her to her feet. "He changed me too. That's how it works. The good ones change you, make you better than you were alone." Marina squeezed her hand. Come on, let's get these women home. The aftermath of the warehouse operation took weeks to fully resolve. The evidence they'd recovered led to 17 arrests, including 2 city officials and a federal agent who'd been taking bribes. The trafficking network that had been trying to rebuild Castellano's empire collapsed before it could fully form. Marcus's war continued, but the victories were mounting. In 6 months, they'd shut down 12 operations, rescued over 100 women, and eliminated dozens of traffickers. The city wasn't clean. It never would be. But it was cleaner than before. Lena found herself thinking about legacy one morning as she watched the sunrise from the terrace. How many lives had they changed? How many women who would have disappeared were now free to choose their own paths? "You're up early," Marcus said, joining her with 2 cups of coffee. "Couldn't sleep. Too much on my mind." She accepted the coffee gratefully. "I've been thinking about what comes next." "In what sense?" "In every sense." Lena turned to face him. "We've built something important here. A team, a mission, a real impact on the problem. But it's also illegal, dangerous, and completely outside any normal system of oversight. What happens when we're too old to do this? When the risk becomes too great? Do we just walk away and let someone else pick up the fight?" Marcus leaned against the railing, considering her questions with the seriousness they deserved. "I've been thinking about that too," he admitted, "especially since you came into my life. Before you, this was simple. I fought until I couldn't fight anymore, then someone else would take over or they wouldn't. Either way, it didn't matter because I'd be gone. But now you have a reason to survive," Lena finished. "Now we have a reason to build something sustainable." Marcus set down his coffee, took both her hands in his. "I've been talking to some people. Lawyers, activists, politicians who aren't corrupt. Building relationships that could help us transition this operation from vigilante justice to something with more legal foundation. You want to go legitimate? I want to build a bridge. Keep doing what we do now, the operations the police can't or won't touch. But also create legal pathways for the women we rescue. Funding for safe houses, therapy programs, job training, political pressure to close the loopholes that let trafficking flourish." He squeezed her hands. "I want us to build something that lasts beyond our ability to kick down doors and shoot traffickers." Lena felt something warm bloom in her chest. "That's a big vision. It's your vision, too. You're the one who kept asking about sustainability, about what happens to the women after we extract them, about whether violence alone is enough." Marcus pulled her closer. "You made me think bigger than revenge, made me see that Sarah's death could fuel something constructive instead of just destructive." "When did you get so philosophical?" "When I fell in love with a woman who asks impossible questions and refuses to accept easy answers." He kissed her, soft and lingering. "I have something for you. I was going to wait, make it romantic, but you're already asking the right questions, so why wait?" He pulled a small box from his pocket. Lena's breath caught. "Marcus, let me say this first." He opened the box, revealing a ring. Simple band, single stone, elegant without being ostentatious. "I know we haven't been together long by normal standards. I know our relationship started in violence and lives in danger. I know I'm not a good man and I've done terrible things, and I'll probably do more terrible things before I'm done. But I also know that I love you more than I thought I could love anyone, that you make me want to be better than I am, that you see the mission clearly enough to improve it and see me clearly enough to accept me anyway." Lena felt tears prickling her eyes. "I'm not asking you to be my wife in the traditional sense," Marcus continued. "I'm asking you to be my partner in everything, to build this legacy together, to fight this war together, to make something meaningful out of the darkness we've both survived. Will you marry me?" "Yes." The word came out choked but certain. "Yes, absolutely yes." He slipped the ring on her finger and kissed her while the sun rose over the ocean and the fortress that had become their home stood solid around them. When they finally broke apart, both of them were crying. "I want to do something for our wedding," Lena said, wiping at her eyes. "Something meaningful. I want to invite the women we've rescued, the ones who've rebuilt their lives. I want them to see that survival is possible, that freedom is real, that they can be happy." Marcus smiled. "That's perfect. That's exactly perfect." The wedding happened 3 months later in the fortress's garden overlooking the water. It was small, intimate, nothing like the grand society affairs that people with Marcus's money usually held. The guests were the people who mattered: Marcus's team, Lena's new family,
formed from violence and loyalty. And 37 women they'd rescued over the past year. Women at various stages of healing, but all of them there to witness that darkness could transform into light. Lena wore white, simple and elegant. No red dress, no expensive silk designed to make her look like property. This dress was hers, chosen by her, worn because she wanted to wear it. Marina stood as her maid of honor. Chen, Alexei, and James stood with Marcus. The officiant was a woman Marcus had rescued 15 years ago, who'd gone on to become a lawyer specializing in human trafficking cases. The ceremony blended traditional vows with promises specific to their life together. "I promise to fight beside you," Lena said, hands clasped in Marcus's. "To share the burden of this war we've chosen. To see the humanity in the people we save and the necessity in the choices we make. To love you through the darkness because you showed me how to find light in it." "I promise to trust your strength," Marcus said, his voice rough with emotion. "To see you as my equal in all things. To build a legacy with you that honors those we couldn't save by saving those we can. To love you not in spite of the danger, but because you chose it anyway. Chose this life. Chose me." They exchanged rings, hers from the proposal, his a matching band, and the officiant pronounced them married. The kiss was witnessed by people who understood what it meant, what it cost, what it promised. The reception was joyful in ways Lena had never experienced. Women she'd helped rescue danced and laughed and shared their stories of rebuilding. Marina gave a toast about Lena's evolution from victim to warrior. Chen told embarrassing stories about Marcus trying to figure out how to court someone properly. Alexei and James demonstrated the least graceful dancing Lena had ever seen, which only made everyone laugh harder. As the evening wound down and guests began to leave, one of the rescued women approached Lena. She was young, maybe 19, and Lena recognized her from the warehouse operation 6 months ago. "I just wanted to thank you," the girl said, "for saving us, for showing us it was possible to be strong again. When I saw you in that warehouse, saw you fighting to protect us, it was the first time I believed I could protect myself too. I've been training, learning self-defense. I want to be like you." Lena's throat tightened. "You don't need to be like me. You just need to be yourself. Strong enough to make your own choices, brave enough to fight for your own life. Everything else is just details." The girl nodded, thanked her again, and rejoined her friends. Marcus appeared at Lana's side, slipping his arm around her waist. "You okay?" "Better than okay. I just realized something." Lena turned to face him. "When I was in that penthouse with Thomas, when everything was falling apart, and I thought I was going to disappear, I prayed for someone to save me. And you did. But the real miracle wasn't the rescue. It was what came after. You didn't just save my life, you gave me the tools to save myself. And now we're giving those tools to other women." "That's the legacy," Marcus said. "Not the operations we run or the traffickers we eliminate. It's the women who learn they're stronger than they knew, who choose to fight back, who build lives beyond the trauma." He kissed her temple. "You started that. You changed what this mission means." As the last guest departed and the team cleaned up, Lena and Marcus walked down to the water's edge. The ocean was calm, reflecting starlight and moonlight in patterns that seemed almost magical. "What are you thinking?" Marcus asked. "That I'm happy. Genuinely, completely happy." Lena leaned against him. "I spent so many years feeling powerless, like I was being carried by currents I couldn't control. But now I'm choosing my direction, choosing this life, this fight, you. The girl Raymond sold doesn't exist anymore. She died in that penthouse. The woman who walked out is someone I actually like being. I like her too." Marcus turned her to face him. "I love her, actually. Love her strength and her compassion and the way she sees problems as opportunities. Love that she took the worst thing that ever happened to her and transformed it into purpose. We transformed it together." "Together," Marcus agreed. They stood there on the beach below the fortress, wrapped in each other, while the water whispered against stone and the life they'd built stood solid above them. Somewhere in the city, trafficking operations continued. Predators stalked prey. Violence and exploitation persisted in shadows the law couldn't reach. But also in that city, 100 women were free because Lena and Marcus had fought for them. Dozens more would be freed in the months and years to come. And the network they'd built, part vigilante justice, part humanitarian mission, part chosen family, would continue the war against darkness. "Tell me about tomorrow," Lena said. "What's our next operation?" Marcus smiled. Chen found evidence of a trafficking ring operating through a network of private hotels. We're still in the intelligence gathering phase, but it looks big. Maybe 50 women across 6 locations. 50. Lena felt the familiar fire kindle in her chest. Not fear, purpose. We'll need a complex coordination plan, multiple teams, simultaneous strikes. I was thinking you could take lead on the strategy. You've got a better mind for the financial connections than I do. Partners, Lena said, the word a promise and a prayer. Partners, Marcus confirmed. They walked back to the fortress hand in hand, talking strategy and tactics and the infinite ways they'd continue fighting the war they'd chosen. The girl in the red dress was gone, replaced by a woman who'd faced the abyss and claimed her power. A woman who'd been sold but couldn't be bought. A woman who'd learned that strength wasn't about never falling. It was about rising every single time and pulling others up with you. Above them, the fortress stood guard. Around them, their team rested and recovered and prepared for the next battle. Before them, the work stretched endless but meaningful, each operation another chance to transform trauma into triumph, victimhood into victory. Lena Hart had been sold into darkness, but she'd chosen to become the light that guided others out of it. And with Marcus Vale beside her, the man who'd saved her and trusted her and loved her enough to let her be dangerous, she knew that choice would define the rest of her life. Not as a victim, not as a survivor, but as a warrior who'd found her purpose in the fight itself and her happiness in the man who fought beside her. The fortress door closed behind them, sealing them in safety and purpose, and the love they'd built from violence and redemption. Tomorrow would bring new battles, new missions, new women to save. But tonight was theirs, earned through blood and courage and the absolute conviction that darkness only won when the light stopped fighting. And Lena Hart had no intention of ever stopping. She'd been sold, she'd been saved, and now she saved others. That was enough. That was everything. That was the life she'd chosen, hand in hand with the man who'd kept his promise of safety and distance, and then broken the distance by loving her anyway. The girl in the red dress was gone. The empress who'd claimed her throne stood in her place, ready for whatever came next. And what came next was always, always worth fighting for.